Okay, it looks like we're ready to get started. Thank you everybody for coming out, and thank you everybody, or your parents. All the parents for bringing all your kids up here so that we can all have this awesome co-op and the kids get to see each other every week. It's a ton of fun. And thank you for the teachers for teaching, because without you we couldn't do this, obviously. The first class we're going to have is jiu-jitsu with Eric Rivard, and then we're going to have orchestra with James Arbazu. So here's Eric.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Eric Rivard. I'm the jiu-jitsu instructor here in the Valley. I've been doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu for about 22 years. Just a little background about what Brazilian jiu-jitsu is. So it is a martial art. It's a fighting martial art. It's different than many of the other martial arts that you've seen out there that we've all grown up with, karate, kung fu. It was taken out of Japanese jiu-jitsu, which if you look at the history of Japanese jiu-jitsu is the open hand art that the samurais used to fight. And it was brought to Brazil, and the Gracie family took it and they modified it significantly. So the Gracies were the two brothers. They were about 140 pounds, small guys, and they weren't very strong. So they modified it to fight mainly on the ground and to use principles of leverage and technique to help a smaller, weaker person defend themselves against a bigger, stronger person. The goal is not to beat the person up. The goal is to survive the fight, to win, and to walk away with as little damage as possible. And it was tested in the streets of Brazil, and the Gracies brought it to the US, introduced it with the very first UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Royce Gracie brought it in, and he went through a tournament style of a bunch of fighters and kind of shocked the whole world of what the capabilities are. So it's a very effective martial art, and I've had the privilege of teaching the kids it. And what we're going to do is we're going to do some self-defense techniques. So the self-defense techniques are the principal aspects of jiu-jitsu, because it's to protect yourself against a fighter. And what we do is we learn certain techniques against certain scenarios. So one of the things that makes jiu-jitsu so effective is it's very similar to wrestling in the way it looks like, but we add the self-defense components to it. And we don't really punch or kick. And the reason that makes it so effective is we're actually able to practice these techniques against a full fighting resisting opponent. And when everything is said and done, that is more valuable than knowing how to punch and kick, because you learn timing, you learn what works, you learn different things and how to react against different sizes and different opponents. And plus, what we do is we get so close to the opponent that punches and kicking don't become very effective. Because to have a punch or a kick to be effective, you have to have distance, so we remove that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over what we call the headlock series. One of the most common situations that you find out in a self-defense situation against a bully or anybody else is they will try to throw a punch and they'll get you in a headlock. And they'll hold on to the head for all dear life. And there's pretty much three scenarios that we're going to go over. One, they grab you a headlock from standing and they hold on. The second scenario is they grab you from the headlock and they start trying to punch you from standing. And the third one, which they usually all these kind of blend in together, is you fall to the ground and you're on the ground, and how do you get out of a headlock? So we're going to go over those scenarios. The first scenario we're going to go over is we're going to go over if the bad guy gets you in a headlock and they're about the same size and build as you, so about the same weight. Say, kids, you ready? Okay, go ahead and go. So the idea behind this one is they're the same size. You get under their hips, and then you use your hips to lift them up, take them down, and by slamming in the ground, they'll naturally break the grip, and you end up on top. And you always want to try to end up on top. So the second one scenario is, we can't always say, well, you can't get me in a headlock because you're my same size. This is they're bigger and stronger than you, which usually what happens. So we can't, it's too difficult, especially for a woman or a child to pick somebody up. So we have a scenario of they're bigger and stronger than you, you know we can't pick them up, so what do we do? Okay, kids, you ready? Okay, go ahead and go. So in this scenario, what we do is we use a leverage because they're holding on so they can't post out with their hands. So we're going to spin them to the ground, end up on top, and then get them in an arm bar, which will break their arm. And if the person can't, one of the things that makes jiu-jitsu so effective is we usually try to end a fight with one of two ways. We either choke the opponent out. If the opponent is passed out on the ground, they can't fight and attack anymore. It allows you to get a safe. Or the second thing is we try to cause trauma, which is with a broken joint, arm, shoulder, leg. And if they have trauma, they can't fight anymore. We've all seen professional athletes where they've got an injury, they keep on playing, but if they break something while they're out there, the body pretty much collapses, they fall to the ground, screaming in pain. And that's the whole goal, to pretty much for you to get out. Okay, so the next scenario is they grab you, they have you in the headlock, and they're gonna try to punch your face. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, kids. You ready? Go ahead, go. So what we do is, the first thing that they do is they put their head down to protect their face. So when they're punching, they hit the top of the head, which is the hardest part of the body. And then they use their other arm to grab the arm. They're punching up by the shoulder area, and then pin it in, which then makes it hard to punch. And then allows them to do a chicken wing, and then they break out of it and will rip their shoulder. All right, good job, kids. Okay, now the next is if they're holding on and you end up on the ground. So we got to know how to get out from if they're on the ground. So the first scenario, they have you in a typical headlock from the ground, and you're on the bottom. So what they do is the headlock, they go ahead and they turn into the opponent. One of the things we always teach them is to always turn into the opponent, look into them, and then they hook their leg. And they get the leverage for them to get the back. And once they have the back, which is the ultimate goal, which we want to do, we then have their neck and we can choke them out. One of the things that we teach our students is to never show your back to your opponent, because once your back is to your opponent, then you're 100% defenseless. You can't see anything, and then you're completely exposed. But that's what we want to try to get. So we leverage their leg and holding on to get their back. So the next one is if they're kind of smart and they know that you're going to hook the leg, or if their feet are so far away from you that you can't hook it and get on top. So go ahead and go, kids. Good job. So what makes this one effective is they know they can't hit the legs, so what they do is they walk their body away, which creates space, and just by easy sit up from there, they're able to push the opponent down because they have no base anymore, because they're holding on, and then they get on top and they're able to break the grip and then break the arm. All right, good job, kids. Let's go ahead and stand up. Do you want to take your foot out? All right, thank you.
So while we're waiting for them to clean up the mats, the orchestra's going to get ready, and these lovely ladies have prepared a short thing for you here.
We were in a finances class, learning how to manage money and to essentially get rich. That's what we learned about, is how to get rich. And we read The Richest Man in Babylon and The Greatest Salesman in the World. And there were 10 principles that we learned. They call them scrolls in the book. But the principles, and these two are going to read the principles for you.